Okay. And you just stir it up. See, that consistency, I could leave it that consistency, but one thing I really like, and what the starter really likes, is to have it just a tad bit thicker. And you just scrape your sides down when you're done. That's kind of what you're going for. It's nice and thick. It's got lots of food. And see, it was right there, and you're roughly and see that there, that's starter. That's starter right there. So when you dehydrate that, if you need to rehydrate, if you lose your starter and you need to rehydrate, that when it's dried, you can just put it in like a little blender, a little spice grinder, turn it into flour, and re-put that in a fresh batch, and voila, you've restarted your starter. It's your emergency, it's your backup. Highly recommend having a backup. And that's it. Easy. Easy, easy. Okay, 4, we're going to jump ahead just a little bit because this needs to, I wanted to show you when, no, we'll do this. When you're doing bread, there's a big part of the sourdough community that says they're big on bonnetons, right? It's your baskets. And they're fancy, they're beautiful, they're expensive. You don't need them. You don't have to have them. If you want to splurge and buy bonnetons, you're welcome to. You don't need them though. These here are dollar store containers. They're the McCormick. This one's a 12 cup, this one's a 9 cup. I started out with the 12 cup. I find that the 9 cup fits my Dutch oven really well. The other thing I like about this, and after I form the dough and I put it on a piece of parchment paper, I can put the parchment paper with the dough in here. It keeps the dough about that big so it doesn't spread out too much. And it also has its own cover. And it fits, well, that one does. These. It fits, you can fold the parchment paper over and the lid still snaps on really nicely. And then you can stack them in your fridge when you do your overnight ferment. They stack well. When you do your overnight ferment, it breaks down more of the nutrients, or more of the phytic acid and the starches in the flour, so it makes it easier to digest. But they stack really well. Cheap, and it's perfect. You can get baskets. You can use smallish baskets that are roughly the size of the bottom of your Dutch oven. If you want, but then you want to cover those with like a shower cap to keep it moist, because you don't want the top of your sourdough drying out. That's the big part. And that's why I like these, is because it seals it and it keeps it nice and moist, but it doesn't keep it too wet, and it lets it ferment perfectly. Okay, does everybody have pens? You still have your pens? Okay, if you want the recipe, it's a big deal for me to be writing, because you create that muscle memory. So I didn't give you a printout on purpose, because I want you to, if you want the recipe, to write it down, because it'll help you remember it a little bit better.
It's a test.
I know I'm mean, aren't I? Terrible.
I want the Cliff Notes.
Is everybody ready? Do we need a couple more minutes? Another minute or so?
Go ahead.
Another thing, having a container with a lid while you mix and ferment your dough, while it's rising, is so amazing. What I end up doing with these, and I try to go back to Winco to get more because I love these so much. They're huge and they work perfect. Unfortunately, they did not have any more, probably because I said I like them out loud. And I can't find them now. They are a 28.5 cup bowl. One of the best things about these is I can use a dry erase marker on the lid. And it's amazing because when I mix my dough, as you can see here, I wrote what time I finished mixing it. I start my stretch and folds, and I do them every half hour to 45 minutes. I can write there. Then when I need to bulk ferment, or when I need to let it rest, when I need to form the loaves and put them in the fridge, and it's all right there, and it helps me keep track. As a mom, I've got mom brain, bad. So this is my lifesaver. Walmart has these retractable dry erase markers for pretty cheap. They're amazing. I won't go back to regular dry erase markers. So, okay, so your dough. And I'm just going to do the base recipe for you guys. I can't do normal, so...
Every time she cooks, she experiments.
I did. So, oh, another thing is that the sourdough community in general, and the recipes will tell you to, when you're adding things into your dough, called inclusions, you can't add them right away. You have to wait till you do your stretch and folds. I don't do that. Because that's too complicated and then I forget. I forget something. I add all of my inclusions right away. And that gives it the dough an opportunity to come together around your inclusions, whereas I see a lot of flops where people are trying to add their inclusions halfway through or when they start doing the stretch and folds, but suddenly the dough just gets stringy and it kind of goes wonky and it just falls apart and then they got to dump the loaf. I'm not wasting it. My time is too precious. My resources are too precious. I value my time and my ingredients too much to take that chance. Granted, I've had a couple flops. One of the flops was I used half honey instead of water. It was too heavy for the starter. There was not enough liquid, and the antimicrobial properties of the honey was too much for the starter, and it ended up being a brick. Don't do half honey. Just don't waste your honey. I cried on that one. I had a feeling I was going to screw up, and that it was going to be too heavy, but I did it anyways, just out of hopes, and it flopped. So yeah, don't learn from me. Don't do it. The other thing, out here, there are several types of bread. Some of them are fresh from today, pulled them out right as I was leaving for here. This is 100% wheat. That is red wheat. That is dense. I do have some bags. I did not mark on the bags what they were. But if you guys want to grab them and pass them around, you're welcome to come up and grab them. That way you can squish them, or we can do it afterwards. You can, but it's important for you guys to be able to squish the dough to get a feel of what works and doesn't work. That's red dough, or red wheat. This is fresh ground white wheat. Home milled white wheat. I find that the white wheat is a little bit better. The flavor profile is better, and I feel like it makes better bread. But that's just me. I'm really picky. This is a half white wheat, and you can see the springiness of it is much different. And then
Is
the
that
other
white
flock,
wheat? What's the other half?
the other half of this, all-purpose flour. It's non-enriched, non-brominated. You don't want to get brominated flour, and it's non-GMO. All of my flour is non-GMO. Organic is overrated. It's an overpriced label that they put on your products. Organic does not necessarily mean truly organic in today's day and age, unfortunately. The chemicals that are used in organic farming are actually more toxic than the chemicals that they're using on standard farming. So I worry more about the GMO than I do the organic. I prefer to do non-GMO, but not organic, honestly. And we've got family that are farmers that have been stressing, like we talk all the time about the differences of organic versus non-organic and how toxic those chemicals are. So my other flop is this one. Now, granted, you see a lot of really pretty bubbles, but it's gummy. Your stretch and folds are really, really, really important. Don't neglect your stretch and folds. It develops the gluten, it traps the bubbles, it gives you a much lighter, much airier loaf. We went from gummy with no stretch and folds and it doesn't, because you haven't developed the gluten, you go from it not wanting to brown and not wanting to give you a nice cracker crust to this. You see the difference? Huge difference. There's lots more bubbling. You see the gumminess with that versus that. Huge difference. Huge difference. Don't neglect your stretch and folds. It's a big deal. Inclusions. This is chive and fresh garlic from our garden. And once again, mix it all together, you get a nice airy loaf. I cut this a little earlier. If you don't wait a full 3 or 4 hours before you cut, it will turn your sourdough gummy, because as it cools down, it is continuing to cook and continuing to cure your bread. What else? Your fermentation. So they're finding diabetics okay, first of all, I'm not a doctor, so I can't give you medical advice. I need to make that clear. Because what I'm reading and what I'm in multiple studies with dietitians, with scientists, they're finding that the microbes in sourdough help control your A1. They help control your A1, your blood sugars, like all of that. So diabetics that can't handle bread, they're finding that their sugars are out of control. They're finding that the natural yeast and the natural microbes in sourdough are helping to control and helping to get those A1 levels under control, which is phenomenal. The healthy microbes, there is lactobacillus in raw starter. It tastes disgusting. I would not recommend eating it. My 6-year-old came in thinking that it was frosting on a piece of parchment paper, took a big old finger swipe and shoved it in his mouth and screeched at me. Because he thought I had set him up. He's a redhead. He has redhead down to the deepest part of his stomach. So while there are some people that will take spoonfuls and eat it, you are welcome to. It is not my thing. When you do bake your bread, and the lactobacillus is what you find in your yogurt. Just eat your yogurt. It's easier. But there are other microbes that survive the baking process that help with your digestion. I was having issues last November with, I threw kidney stones and I got really sick. My kidneys started shutting down. I started going into renal failure, could not handle, and I started going through reactive hypoglycemia. So as soon as I had any wheat, anything whatsoever, I would have a hypoglycemic attack. And I would be flat on my face, dizzy, puking. I couldn't, my heart was racing. I felt like my heart was going to explode. And so I had to cut out all grain whatsoever, like every bit of grain. And then slowly over a month, as I got my kidneys back going, was able to start reintroducing weight. That was the pivotal point of starting sourdough. I can handle sourdough. Now I can handle, if I have store-bought bread, I can handle it, but I can tell the difference. Because the microbes in sourdough help your system. We went through a month-long detox, and I kid you not, when you switch completely over to sourdough, your system will go through a detox. And it's just, I know we're talking about food, but you'll get like the runs, you'll like stinky, it's gross. But it'll detox your intestines. It'll flush out all the junk out of your intestines and be able to, it just restarts. It just restarts your system. It's amazing. It's crazy. It's amazing. So I've noticed a difference switching over to sourdough. I'm not a doctor, but I know my body. The other thing, people that are on FODMAP diets, they're finding, and I would not recommend this to anybody, but it was fascinating to me. People that are on FODMAP diets, which is like and Mediterranean diets, that are having to cut out like phytic acid and gluten and things like that, because they're finding that it's not necessarily not for everybody, but for a lot of people, it's not necessarily the gluten, it's the starches. And when you take care of the starches and you break down the starches, there's less stomach issues because of those healthy microbes. I wouldn't recommend it to anybody. Like, it's your body, it's your choice. You do your research, but it is just so fascinating what these healthy microbes do with your digestive system and for your health. They're linking it to some weight loss. They're linking it to more energy and just healthier in general. So with that, I'm gonna do a basic recipe, but like I said, I can't do normal, so I'm gonna dump things in that, just to say, hey, I'm doing inclusions. I minced up Kalamata olives and added a little bit of liquid smoke to it to make a smoky Kalamata olive bread, because I can't do normal. So your bread dough. And this part you want to weigh. I feel like it's really important to weigh this. So you're going to do 200 grams of starter. figure out which one is the longest to go. This one. And see, because I don't weigh them, you can see the consistency difference. But it's okay, because it's got the same microbes in it. Oops, and I went overboard. I got excited about this. And once again, you're doing a general. I just do general weights. So sometimes, and I wouldn't recommend putting it back in your bowl, but I know I'm going to be baking with this, and it's a clean bowl, but you want 200 grams. Roughly, if you get 215 grams, fantastic. It's not going to kill your bread. It's going to make your bread extra happy. See, like that's 213. Not a big deal. Always wipe off your rims so it doesn't get crusties and let gross stuff in. And again, filtered water. You're going to add, you'll zero your scale out. You're going to give it 650 grams of water, of filtered water. It does not have to be warm water, unlike commercial yeast. Once you get a happy starter, you just use water. Then you're going to do 1,000 grams of flour. I did not use a special recipe when I did the half whole wheat. All I did was take half all-purpose flour and half whole wheat flour. That's it.
You need to zero your scale.
Huh?
You need to zero your scale.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I almost dumped it in.
I was watching.
Then I would have had to do some extra math. My husband's the mathematician, not me. And that's why I say, I just kind of dump in, because I'm not the precise mathematician. My husband is. You're going to do roughly 1,000 grams of flour.
And you said that the type of flour is all-purpose?
All-purpose, this is all-purpose flour. Give me just a second, let me get this. And because I added just a touch extra water, I can do that because I'm used to this, so. And I didn't add the calamatas. See, and this is where one of those screw up things and I get distracted. So.
When were you supposed to put that in? With the water?
I was supposed to calculate that in with the water. And I didn't. So this is where the fun begins. When you screw up, which you will, you add a little bit of starter, a little extra starter, you add a little extra flour, and you dump and you have fun. Typically you would add 15 to 20 grams of salt. These are already salted, so I'm not adding extra salt in it. You can add, if you want to do a cinnamon raisin, you add some cinnamon, you add a little bit of sugar, and you add a couple handfuls of raisins. And you do it all right off the bat. You don't have to wait till stretch and folds to do it.
But that's figured in with you figure it in with your water weight? Is that how
You can add a little extra flour if you add sugar, because the sugar will dissolve and become a part of it. If you're adding a little bit of honey, I wouldn't go more than a few tablespoons of honey, because it'll overpower your starter, your microbes, because of so you can add a little extra starter if you're going to use honey. You can, if you want to see your dough go bonkers, Add a few tablespoons, whisk in a few tablespoons of nut butter. You'll get an extra tart dough, or extra tart bread. It will be really nice sourdough, robust sourdough flavor. You don't say if you do almond butter, fresh ground almond butter works perfect because it doesn't have all of the extra additives. And I blew the top off of this, and this is a really secure lid. This is a very secure lid. And it blew the top off the lid. It blew the lid off because it really likes nut butter for some reason. And you don't taste that almond flavor. You can use peanut butter if you're not allergic to peanut butter. You can use cashew butter, like whatever. I haven't tried it with sunflower seed butter or soy nut butter. I wouldn't see why that wouldn't like it. If you're doing bagels, you can take the recipe and add a few grams of oil, your choice of oil, to it, and maybe some sugar if you want to do a sweet bagel. It's super easy. It's very, very versatile. I forgot my other big my big spatula. That's the other thing I forgot. I knew I forgot a bunch of stuff.
I've got a big one in here.
Do you? Thank you. And you just mix it, and you mix it all up and prepare for a mess, because you're going to make a mess. You are a lifesaver.
Every once in a while.
Oh, always. You've saved my tush more than once, many times. Silicone works amazing for these little teeny silicone spatulas, work amazing for your dough or for your starter, because the starter just crumbles off. I hate the wooden spatulas or the wooden stuff. Microbes can get stuck in the wood grains. Your bad bacteria can get stuck in there, so there's a lot of people that swear by them. I would never recommend using the wood spatulas. But these little silicone ones, and they fit perfectly in your jars. Let me turn this off. Kitchen scales. Walmart has these little ones with a USB port. They're rechargeable, so you don't have to worry about keeping your batteries in your house. Amazing. I love the scale. Your dough is going to be stiff at first. And it's going to be a little bit shaggy. But as you do your stretch and folds, it will come away from the sides of the bowl better. Oh, this smells amazing. I love Kalamata olives.
This is what I mean about she experiments. Every time she makes one, I watch her on Facebook, what she has on sale this week. And she's always got some new something. Because she can't stand it. She has to experiment.
Everybody can do normal, right? Everybody can do normal. And what's the fun if everybody does normal? Somebody's got to be weird. What's her name? This is your consistency of your dough.
I'll have her write her.
It's really gloppy. It's still pretty moist.
Monica King.
It's not overly dry,
She
but that's
also
what you
has
want.
Some other.
And then you just clean that off. You get your lid on. I'm gonna grab another, oh yeah, I could have, huh? Okay, so this is where your dry erase markers come in handy. It is Yeah, okay. It's, let's say 8 o'clock. So I'm gonna write on the top of my thing, 8 o'clock is when I mixed it. You're gonna let it rest for 2 hours. So at 10 o'clock, you're gonna start your stretch and folds, your SF. Every half hour to 45 minutes typically. I will tell you that I have stretched that on my son's birthday. I let it sit for 4 hours, and then I did a stretch and fold, and then forgot it at home when I came to decorate for his party. So it sat for another 2 hours. Went home to get everybody, brought them, did stretch and folds and everything. I forgot it during the party for another hour, and it was fine, and got home. By the time we got cleaned up and I had all the stretch and folds done, by the time I got home, I was too tired. So I threw the whole bowl in the refrigerator instead of shaping it into loaves. Threw the whole bowl in the refrigerator till the next morning, took it out, chopped it up, formed the loaves, put them back in, or put them in my little bowls, put them back in the fridge because we had other things going on, forgot about them, and then the next night I baked them. And you know what? They were phenomenal. I thought for sure, because I had missed every single mark, I thought for sure I had screwed it up. It was fine. Your dough's gonna do what it's gonna do. Your microbes are gonna do their job. Don't sweat it, don't stress it. The sourdough is for you, you're not for the sourdough.
What's your business name on Facebook?
Homestead Eden.
Homestead Eden.
Okay, so stretch and folds, so you're gonna start your stretch and folds roughly 2 hours later. If it ends up being 2.5 or 3, it's gonna be fine. So every half an hour, aim for every half an hour. So 10:30, 11, 11:30, you're gonna let it rest for about an hour. So you're gonna let it rest until 12:30. You're gonna form, I can't spell tonight. You're gonna form your loaves. Okay? Easy peasy. Yes?
How many times do you stretch and fold?
You do roughly 3. If you have a little extra water or liquid in your dough, you might need 4, you might need 5. The big consistency that you're gonna, and I'll show you with this one. When you're doing your stretch and folds, you can sit at your sink with the water running on warm. You can have a dish, get your hands warm, or get your hands wet, because the dough will not stick to your hands as well. It makes it so much easier. You're going to pull it away from the sides of your dough. You're gonna lift it up. See how stretchy that is versus gloppy? I don't know if everybody can see that. Can y'all see that? See how that's just, and see how it just comes. This is actually bagel dough, so it has a little bit of oil in it. So it behaves just, and it's got slightly higher hydration. But typically with this, the dough, by the time you finish your stretch and folds, when you tip it up, it will just roll out of yours. It will not, when the gluten and everything is properly developed, you'll know, because it doesn't stick to the sides, and it's you know, you have to kind of shake it to flop, to stretch it over. And you basically, you reach in, you pull it up, you flop it over, turn it a quarter turn. If you need to get your hands wet again, get your hands wet, pull it up, flop it over, again and again, until you've done all 4 sides. Super easy. Don't be scared of your dough. If it rips, it's fine. Aim to try not to let it rip when you stretch it over. It'll be fine, and you'll know, yeah, like I said, when it's not sticking to the sides of your bowl anymore, that's when your stretch and folds are done. You'll be tempted, but do at least 3, no less than 3, because you see the difference on the dough between none. Actually, I think I did 1 because I couldn't get it to form. I couldn't get it to form a loaf. It was just a wet blob. So I had to do 1 stretch and fold with this. But you see, it's dense. Whereas the full 4 gets you that. It's really nice and airy and it browns really nicely. Let me move that.
The ones that you had at potluck last time that were so good, those were the ones that you did big long time.
Oh yeah, those ended up being, I forgot those for multiple hours, multiple times, because we were, doing business stuff and work stuff, and I homeschool as well. I homeschool as well on top of all of this. So sometimes homeschooling and other business and filling orders takes precedent over the dough. But I can do that because I know my starter is amazing and I know that it's going to do what it's going to do. If you overproof your dough, it's okay. Form it again. If it goes flat, form it again. Put it in a smaller container so it's a little bit more contained. And I'll show you how to there's my flour. And I forgot my